So here we have a machine that's been donated. Toshiba, it's probably 7 or 8, maybe 10 years old. It's in pretty good nick though, and it has Windows 7, or it did when it came from the factory. The cable has been repaired, but as long as Philips says it passes, it will be usable. There's no wires showing. So, as before, let's power it up. Okay, so we're having, there's a warning on here to do with battery being very low. So that's fine, just press return, and this looks like the hardware is in good shape. We're resuming Windows, and we're at a locked Windows Home Premium screen. Right, that was quite quick. I wonder if this has an SSD in it already. Anyway, let's find out. So power it off, hold it down. You can just see the lights are on there, and then it goes off, and you can hear actually, I could hear the disk shut down, so it must be a spinning disk. So let's pull the power out, move that to one side, turn it over. So pull these two back. You need 3 hands for this, then push that out. There's our battery. And again, I have my little plastic collector for screws. And yeah, that one is captive, stays in there. So let's go underneath that, pull that off. Put that to one side. And then I can already see this says 2 gigabytes here and 1 gigabyte here. So this is a prime target for in a reasonably good Windows 7 machine. It will take 4 gigabytes. So I'm just going to, like I said, just grab the metal table, make sure I don't have any electric charge. I'm going to drop this out. So it's probably worth explaining the difference between DDR2 and DDR3. So this says PC3, which means it's DDR3. I have another stick of memory over here that says PC2, just in there, and this is DDR2 memory, and you can see that the notches are different. I put them against the black here. So the notches are in different positions, so you can't accidentally put it in the wrong machine. But DDR3 is a good sign, which means it's got a more recent chipset, which means it's more likely to be a Windows 10 candidate. So DDR3, it's newer, it's a newer machine, it had Windows 7, it's got 3 gig in it at the moment. I'm going to see if I can grab a 2 gigabyte DDR3 stick out of my little collection here, and I have one here. So that can just go in here like that. Click that in. So now we have 4 gigabytes. And this one is 8500 and this is 10600. So this will clock down to the same speed as the other one. But that should be fine. More RAM is better than higher frequency. Okay, so then let's pull the hard drive out. Lift that up. If you don't have a decent nail, you can get one of these plastic picks underneath there and pull that up. Okay, so in here we have what looks like one little screw. So the SATA interface is here, and so this means this needs to move that way. There's the tab here is loose, but this is holding it in place, I think. Yes, it is. So let's just remove that little screw. And this looks to be different from all the others, so I'll just keep that there. And then just push away from the interface there, and then this hard drive pops out. Okay, so this is in a little carrier. So all we're going to do is take these screws out that hold the hard drive in place, and that is different from the one that was holding the chassis and the carrier in place, so make sure you keep them separate. This one out. This one out. Got a bit of space here. And this one out. Okay. So before I take it out of the chassis, I just have a quick look at the orientation. So that's how it was, and so that's the power connector and that's the data connector on here. The small one's the power connector, so I want to make sure that's the right way around. Okay, so if I slide that out of its carrier and put that one in, I know that when I install it, the connector's going to be in the right place. So then I need to grab hold one of these screws, put it in, just check it's lined up in here, and screw that in. And if I pull this in again, just line it up. Don't over tighten them. It's just a very gentle thumb tight. As you screw it, you start to feel the resistance, and once you can do it no longer with just finger and forefinger, that is now secure in there. Okay, so we're just going to drop that into, he said, put it in that way first and drop it into the hole. Now we're just going to slide it, just using friction, and gently slide that in to its position. The tab is now in line with the hole, so I can secure that in place with the small screw we took out. And then I can place the cover back on, and the screw that holds the plastic cover in place also holds the chassis in place and stops that small amount of wobble. So there are some tabs at the end of here, so they need to slide in first, and then just push it in place, screw it up, take the memory cover, just make sure that's lined up and start. So these might need a little bit of encouragement. There we go. Alright, so now we have a machine that's been upgraded to 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. It's got 120 gigabyte SSD in it. Connect it to power. So this is going to be a Windows 10 machine, so I take my Windows 10 USB key and I put it into the USB socket, and we'll do the install. So I'll pause there. So to recap, we have turned this machine over, we have opened up the back, we've upgraded from 3 gigabytes to 4 gigabytes. We have a visible product key here. I've swapped the hard drive for a solid state disk. So this is a prime candidate for Windows 10. Now I do have 2 different Windows 10 install keys. This one is USB 2 and this one is a USB 3 high speed. Only really quite recent machines will accept the USB 3 install. In fact, I've only managed to get this to work once. Most of the machines don't like USB 3. They might have a USB 3 socket on the machine, and you can tell a USB 3 socket. So these are both USB 2. Because of the symbol, a USB 3 socket will have what looks like an SS in front of the USB 3 symbol, but also a dead giveaway is a USB 3 socket has a blue tab inside, whereas these are black. And if that was USB 3, there would be a blue tab there. Not all the time, but often there's a blue tab, and there'll be a little SS in front of the USB logo. So this is an older machine. I'm not going to bother with USB 2. I'm just going to go with not bother with USB 3. I'm going to stick to USB 2. Plug the key in, plug power in. Okay, so what I will have to do potentially is intercept the boot process. So on a Toshiba, I believe F12 gets me, F12 go to boot manager, so I've pressed F12. Okay, so now I have a choice of whether that is hard drive, CD/DVD, floppy disk, boot over the network, over the LAN, or 5 USB. So I'm just going to cycle down using the arrow keys, press USB, and now I'm in the Windows boot manager. So pretty much all of these machines, unless they're very, very old, are 64-bit. So I'll press return. It'll take just a few seconds to pull the initialization files off the USB key onto the solid state disk on this machine. And we have the Windows 10 Windows logo. And I was about to point out the wait, I'm doing thing, spinning circle. Okay, so we do the initial setup. So it should have grabbed these automatically, language to install, time and currency format. So we want all of these to be UK. So click next, and then either use the mouse and click or just press enter. And now it will start to do the install. Right, so this first decision, it wants us to activate. We don't want to do that right now. So we just say, I don't have a product key. Okay, and then we will just install Windows 10 Home. So we say we don't have a product key because it's not a Windows 10 key and we're installing Windows 10. We want to install Windows 10, get it online, update it, make sure it's up to date, and then go into Windows activation, and it will probably say we are not activated. At that point we put the key in and it checks it online and activates it there and then. So we have to accept the license. Let's say yes, and then we click next. And then we want to custom install Windows only. We don't care about anything else. We are now, this is the hard drive that has nothing installed on it, so it's unallocated. It doesn't even have a partition. That's fine. Windows will build that for us. So we click next, and then we let this follow through. So I'll come back once this piece has finished and we're at the next step. So from the previous screen, it rebooted itself. What I find safest to do is when it has finished going through the list of things that it had on the screen, and it says it will reboot in 10 seconds. At that point, I usually pull the USB key out. You shouldn't need to, but if the boot order in the BIOS is set for the USB to be ahead of the hard drive, sometimes it goes back through the install process again. So when it's gone through all the list, and once it's finished the copying Windows files, everything else happens very quickly, because installing features it can't do because it's not online, installing updates it can't do because it's not online. So once it's done the copying Windows files, then it all happens pretty quickly. So I set that going at about probably about 8 minutes ago. So it took 8 minutes to go to the reboot process. I pulled the USB key out as it was rebooting before the Toshiba logo came up, and now it is setting up Windows. So we'll let that finish, and then we'll start the out-of-box experience setup. Okay, so it's rebooted itself to finish the setup process. And we should be ready to do the initial configuration. Okay, Cortana is going to talk to you now, and if you don't want to listen to her, click this microphone button down here in the bottom left, and it mutes her. Once you've done 10 of these, you'll definitely want to mute her. Okay. So now we start with the region, United Kingdom, that's correct. Press enter. United Kingdom keyboard, that's correct. Press enter. Do you want to add a second keyboard? No, we'll skip that. Okay, this is a key point. If you connect this machine to the internet now, it will insist on you using a Microsoft account to set up this machine, which we don't want to do. So I click, or you should click, I don't have internet. Now it will, complain. It really wants you to use a Microsoft account so it can hook you into Microsoft services, Office 365, OneDrive, etc. But we don't know that the end user is going to need any of that. So we just do continue with limited setup in this bottom left-hand corner. And it will do everything without being connected to the internet. And I will just connect in this little wireless mouse just so that I don't have to use this little trackpad the whole time. So, alright, so I just type in admin. So I'm afraid I had a bit of an issue with my phone and its storage capacity. So it stopped recording as I was stepping through the out-of-box experience. But I think the last section of video finishes with me starting to type in the username. So I've clicked, I don't have internet, therefore I won't be using a Microsoft account. I put in admin, return, don't put in a password at all, press return, and then it starts going through the questions mainly about Microsoft telemetry. So I say no to all of those, and then right at the end it says, do you want to set up Cortana? I say no, and then it thinks about things for a minute or so, then it reboots, and it comes up, and then you have a screen and it says a few words, just setting things up, only be a minute, that kind of thing, and then without you doing anything, it launches into this screen here, which is the initial desktop screen for a clean build. Now the observant of you will have noticed that this is a different machine. This was the machine I was working on, and I tried to do this segment again and record it, and it still didn't work. So hopefully this one will work. So what I did on there, I'm about to do on here. So I can remove the USB key. We don't need that anymore, it's all installed. And now we do need to get it onto the internet. So if we click down on the wireless, I'm going to select Redbourn Parish Centre, connect automatically, connect, type in no, that's not the right one, type in the key for the internet at the parish centre, and it will connect, and there we go, we're connected. So now we need to set Windows Update going. So let's go to Updates, so check for updates, return, and you can get rid of this browse the web with Microsoft Edge, just click maybe later. Okay, so this is automatically checking for updates. Okay, well that gave up too quickly. There are definitely updates available. So let's check for updates. And it will come back. It will probably get a display driver, maybe a new driver for the touchpad, maybe another driver for the webcam. So we're just using a generic Windows 10 build here, and none of the drivers are really specific to this. And because we weren't connected to the internet, it wasn't pulling those drivers down as we were doing the install. So it was quicker to do the initial setup, but it's going to be longer to do the updates for that reason. But at least we haven't had to use a Microsoft account and enable all of that telemetry and OneDrive, etc. So now this is downloading. The single biggest one is the Windows 10 version 20H2 cumulative update. That will take a while to download. It will also take a while to install. Some of these will come up and say restart required. That's okay, you can ignore that, just leave it going. You don't need to restart until everything has finished. And as an example, on this screen that you may just be able to see, I've got the cumulative update for Windows 10 and a Synaptics mouse driver. They both say pending restart. So now I can click on restart now. He says, there we go. So that is restarting. This one is doing its update. Just as a matter of interest, this machine came in with Windows 7 and was unlocked. So as an experiment, in order as we discussed on the other day about installing Windows 10 over Windows 7, activating it using the key that's built into the machine, and then doing a clean install of Windows 10 on a solid state disk. That's what I'm doing on this one. So yes, it takes a long time in of itself, but once you set it going, you can put it to one side and start doing something else. So this is already upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10, still on the original disk. And in fact, I'm going to cancel these updates, and or at least I'm going to have a look on here and see if this machine has activated itself. Because if this has a digital, so we can see Windows 10 Home, Windows is activated with a digital license. This machine has a digital footprint with Microsoft now. So now I can shut this off, put in the solid state drive, install Windows 10, and this machine is a nice 8GB secondary school machine ready to go. Alright, there's a couple of other things I want to show you around Chromebook, and there's a machine just over here that has a CMOS battery problem, so I'll set those up and make a recording of those too. So this machine has finished all of its updates, downloading, installing updates. This is now a clean, basic build. There's a few things we want to do before we shut it down and wrap it up or get ready for it to be donated. First thing is there will have been some notifications that went on during the install, so you can just click clear all notifications. That gets rid of those. Then we need to open Edge. So the first time Edge opens, it wants you to set up a Microsoft account and sync all of your data, etc. And just press confirm, that gets rid of that. Now you have to open the browser again, so click it one more time. And now we're into Microsoft Edge. Edge is actually a lot better than any of the previous Microsoft browsers. It's built on the same technology as Chrome, so we don't need to install Chrome for the students to be able to use this, but to save us some time, I'm just using Edge, and the IT support for the school can put whatever browser they prefer. So on here, one of the things we do want to do is, if you look at the start menu, there's quite a lot of stuff installed in here, Microsoft apps, various things that we just really don't need on here and are taking up space, taking up some resources. So one of the things I have been doing with all of my builds is running a script that pulls out quite a lot of the material that we don't really need. So if you just do a search for Windows 10 debloat. So Windows 10 debloater comes up first. Pretty much the second entry is debloat Windows 10 in 2021, Chris Titus Tech. This project is on GitHub, it's open source, it's been validated with various other people, it's been tested. He's been updating this for the past 5 years or so, 3 to 5 years. So a lot of people have tried it, looked at it, it's been investigated. It doesn't do any harm. All it does is take some of let's tweak the system to be a bit more performance, particularly when you're using lower grade hardware. So I'm just going to, before I do that, I just want to check that I am still recording. Okay, good. So I'm going to copy that line there, and then I'm going to hit the right mouse button on the start menu and go to Windows PowerShell (admin). So this will run, and you need to give permission for that. So this is running a PowerShell for Windows, and it takes a couple of seconds for the prompt to appear. So now I can do Control V, which pastes that script that I just copied from the website, and I press return. And this is going to bring up a grey window with various buttons on it. It looks complex, but actually it's not. So so what we're going to do is, if we wanted to install a number of applications, you would do those here. You would install Chocolatey first. You then have to restart the PowerShell, and then you could put Firefox, Chrome, PowerToys, Windows Terminal, but we don't need to do any of that. So what I do run is I run Essential Tweaks. So we click that, and if we go back to the shell, so it creates a restore point of the build that you've got. So if something really did go wrong, then you could reset it back. And this is kind of the master restore point that you could revert this machine back to if you ever had a problem. So that should complete pretty quickly. Okay, so now it's disabling a lot of the telemetry. Microsoft wants to constantly have this machine talk to it. It's disabling some of the feedback, it's disabling some of the automatic updates. And predominantly it's now removing a whole load of inbuilt Microsoft apps like Bing News, Bing Sports, 3D Builder, App Connector, Bing Translator, just a lot of stuff that just won't be needed. They'll either be using a browser or they'll install a particular piece of software. The majority of them will be using Google services. So we're just taking this out. It won't pop up and ask for, you have 30 days use of this, buy a license, etc., etc. So we're just taking a lot of this out. Depending on the machine, this might take 2 or 3 minutes, but you'll know when it's finished because a pop-up says that it's completed. And once it has done, then there are 3 other things we're going to click on this menu, and then we're done. So we just removed Zoom Music, Zoom Video, Windows Feedback Hub. We're also deleting Candy Crush, Facebook, Royal Revolt, Viber, Netflix, One Calendar, LinkedIn for Windows, just a whole load of things that the kids don't need. Well, most people wouldn't need on theirs. So operation complete, so we do OK. There are a number of other things we could do here to make it higher performance, but they may need OneDrive, they might like to use Cortana. The only one I would turn off is visual effects, and so down in the corner you can just say that it's adjusting visual effects for performance rather than beauty. On security, I set that to high, so that ensures that the kids are as protected as they can. The SMB protocol, which is insecure, is being disabled. And then security updates only. So this basically turns off all of the interruptions from Windows Update, apart from 4 important security updates. Everything else is deferred for a number of months, if not years. So that just optimizes the machine. That's all we do now. So I can close that box. I can close the PowerShell. I can then just do a quick restart. So we'll see it restart. And if you compare a Windows 10 machine on a spinning disk that's 7 or 8 years old with this one, which is now has a solid state disk, we have the boot menu, the boot screen, Windows 10 starts, and in my experience it will be ready to go within about 20 seconds, which is probably faster than the machine was when it was brand new. using a traditional hard drive, a spinning disk hard drive. So this is an oldish machine. The bus aren't as quick, but there we go. We're in, ready to go. Fire up a browser. So this machine is ready to power down. So we'll power that down. So shut down. And this now is ready to go for the kids. Okay.